detailed method of the experimental method of the experiments and the calculation. I'll show you some of the real life data or the real calculation, how we are going to perform. Experimental method, whatever I have shown you, whatever you have read, we'll be discussing that. And then we'll be discussing some other concepts which are not already taken into this discussion. Okay. So let's start with this chapter. Okay. Now let me share the screen first. Yeah. I hope you can see this screen. Okay. So
Yes, sir.
in the last class, if you can remember, we have discussed about the measuring of the fracture properties. Okay. So we have seen that what are the limitations to measure the actual fractures and how their orientation and what is their length and everything, how much frequency. So these things required. Suppose, because if you can see, if you can visualize, suppose we are considering a cool block of 1 centimeter cube at some depth, suppose. So until and unless you actually take the sample and take out the structure by internal microscope or some powerful microscope or by scanning, you will not be able to measure all the fractures and their orientation and their apertures in a very accurate way. What by simulation, what we are going to do, we are simply assuming that okay, if there are three different directions x, y, z, and we are taking the average of all the fractures that we are going to see in the x direction. Suppose in the reservoir simulation, what we are going to do in xyz direction, we are just giving a value that okay, in x direction it is maybe 0.01, in y direction it's maybe 0.01, but in z direction it is somewhat less because our vertical permeability is also very much less. Bedding plane is not going to allow the permeability, so it is very less. So 0.001, suppose. Now whatever value I'm going to take, it is just as a whole average value for some particular depth. Okay. But in situation, in real life, in field, it is never will be the case that a fracture which is going to be moving in the x direction, it will always remain in that x direction. It may be interconnected. Its orientation, suppose it may be deviating from north direction, north direction to suppose 10 degree east or 20 degree east, or maybe 10 degree 20 degree west, like that. And their aperture also, obviously it can vary. In the aperture there may be free space, totally open fracture, there may be partially filled fracture, or there may be totally filled fracture. Okay, but in general, when you are going to put the value, when you are going to see the simulation, we are actually taking a single value for average in all the fractures in that direction, and we are going to give the value that this is the permeability. And if we have to give the aperture and the length, suppose we are going to give you an average that it is 10 meter distance, and their aperture may be 0.002 millimeter, like that. Okay, so you can understand that how we are going to do the input. And in the next case, you can do everything same, but in the x direction you are just increasing the permeability or the length or maybe the aperture by some one time or two times, like that. And then finally you will observe the production. Obviously, whenever observing the production, you will be observing both the gas production as well as the water production. Okay, so it is very difficult, but we can estimate. But as it is totally in the underground, it is very difficult. And all the time, the pressure reading, the effective stress reading, everything is going to be very much interrelated. And at very single point of time, a certain factor is going to change, and that factor directly and indirectly is going to change the other factor. Okay, some of the discussions we have shown that, and we will also continue to this. Now, to start with the discussion, we have seen that there are three types of permeability. First is the absolute permeability, considering the total 100% saturation of the water. Second is the effective permeability, taking in a ratio, taking the concept of the irreducible water saturation or immobile fluid saturation, and the third one is the relative permeability. Third one is the dry gas permeability, and the relative permeability is measured based on the ratio of the effective permeability with the base permeability. Okay, and whenever you are going to consider this permeability, you have to consider the same basis for all your fluid or the gases. Okay, now the permeability, if you want to see the permeability, so obviously you can see that whenever there is a total water saturation, for case of the absolute permeability, you know that it is measured based on the total water saturation. But this total saturation, when it is totally filled with the water, obviously the water pore pressure will be the maximum. So the effective stress will be the lowest one because the pore pressure is the higher at that particular depth. Okay, can you imagine that if it is for dry, then obviously there will be less pore pressure, but when it is totally saturated with the for case of the absolute porosity, whenever the coal is already saturated with the water and is 100% saturation, so that case it is totally filled with the water, so the pore pressure will be higher, so the effective stress will be low. So with that lower effective stress, the permeability, whatever it is going to vary, that permeability, and the case when it is not totally saturation, it is you are going to relate the absolute permeability in the commercially developed reservoirs. What is commercially developed reservoirs? That means it is having the total concept of the apertures and connected with the fluid flow network. Okay, and it is in the in situ. And in situ, you know that there are clits, there are apertures, there is totally heterogeneity and anisotropic, and so water will not be 100% saturation. Okay, and obviously whenever you are going to take out the water, it is obviously the saturation is going to reduce. So at that point of time, whatever the permeability will be giving, that permeability and the absolute permeability, whatever you are going to measure, that is going to be different. Okay, and sometimes it is observed that the absolute permeability is quite less, is usually less than the in situ absolute permeability. Why? Because in the laboratory, if you are going to measure the absolute permeability, you are going to assume that the total saturation is present. But whatever is in the field, it is never going to happen. Okay, because water is supposed to migrate from one place to another place, and as the permeability is there, so it is pressure dependent. So depending on the pore pressure, the effective stress principle is again going to change, and the pressure gradient by which the permeability will be decided, that is also going to change. So obviously the permeability for this field case will be actually some higher than whatever you are going to measure the permeability in the core. Okay, so core absolute permeability is somewhat less, okay, than the field permeability. Now, if I consider about the relative permeability case, you know, relative permeability case is defined by the effective permeability with the base permeability. And again, with the permeability, you have seen that the fracture porosity means the fracture void spaces, the open, the apertures, the space within the two fractures, whether it is open fractures or the filled fractures, filled with other materials or no. So this porosity is also going to dictate. So the permeability and the flow is going to be dominated by both the fracture porosity and the fracture permeability. Okay, so obviously these two are the main thing and main parameter to decide. Okay, but then at the same time, you have seen that whatever the horizontal permeability you are going to see, that horizontal permeability should be averaged. Okay, if I go back to show you the equation of the horizontal permeability, you have seen that this is the equation by which we are going to do the average of the horizontal permeability. This is the horizontal average permeability. Okay, considering the both permeability in the S and Y direction. So if you can measure the permeability in face slits and the Bartlett direction, you will be going to measure the average permeability in the horizontal direction. And again, in the vertical direction, the permeability will be again quite less because the bedding planes are not going to give rise, and the overburden pressure is so high that no fluid is allowed to pass through the bedding plane. Okay, And as the pressure, as the stress increases, the permeability will reduce. Okay, you know that. So the differences of this permeability is quite common in the CBM reservoir. Again, okay. Now, as you know that you have to measure the porosity also, and in the porosity there are only two parts. One is the pore volume and one is the bulk volume. You can very well, if it's geometric shape, you can measure the bulk volume, or if it is a cold chunk in the laboratory, if it is a cold chunk, you can measure the bulk volume by Archimedes principle, having water displacement technique. Okay. Whereas in the pore volume, generally, if you read the text, they have also given, and I'll show you in the next papers, subsequent discussions. Globally, there is a helium pycnometry method. Pycnometry is the technique by which you are going to allow the helium gas, the purest helium gas, 99.999% of purity. Okay, helium is having very low kinetic diameter. It is having a low kinetic diameter of 20 nanometer. 26 nanometer. 1 nanometer is 10 to the minus 9 meter. Okay, so 26 nanometer, and so it can penetrate, it can access all the cold spaces or all the cold volume spaces or the pore spaces, which is going to vary generally from 2 nanometer and higher side. Okay, 2 nanometer to higher side. So most of the cold pore spaces having only pore fraction of 2 to 26 nanometer, helium may not be able to penetrate, but after that it can execute all the pore spaces. So this is the standard law, standard technique of the helium pycnometry, and in that case, whatever density or whatever porosity we are going to get, that is taken into the consideration for the porosity measurement. Okay, and for this we are going to use the Boyle's law. You have studied the Boyle's law, that if the temperature is constant, P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2. This is the constant factor, and by using this formula, using this relation, we are going to measure the porosity or the pore volume. Okay. Once you measure the porosity, you take the total pore volume by multiplying the porosity with the total volume. Okay. But there are again some problem. If you are going to measure the porosity, now depending on the gas, suppose you are going to measure it by helium, but then whenever you are going to take out the water, the gases which are coming out mainly is the methane, there may be some part of the carbon dioxide or nitrogen or else. Okay, so you are going to measure the porosity by helium, which is having a kinetic diameter of 26 nanometer, but methane, which is the most common gas which is trapped into the CBM reservoir, is having a kinetic diameter of 38 nanometer, and carbon dioxide, which is also very much common, okay, also very much used for sequestration, it is also having a diameter of 33 nanometer. Okay, so helium kinetic diameter is much less than both of the carbon dioxide and the methane. So now you can visualize that if I am going to measure the pycnometry by helium so that I can get the porosity of the coal measured by the helium gas, which is having a 26 nanometer dia, but then this porosity I am going to use to measure the methane or the carbon dioxide gas porosities, which is having a kinetic diameter of 38 nanometer and 33 nanometer respectively for both methane and carbon dioxide, and obviously both of them are higher than the helium. So what will happen? Obviously, whatever volume is accessible for helium, that much pore volume or the void volume will not be accessible for either of methane or carbon dioxide. Why? Because their kinetic diameter is much higher than the helium. Okay, but then we are going to take the porosity, it is everywhere with this error, although it is going to provide some error because all of them, all the everywhere, this is the standard method of getting the information of the porosity, and this pycnometry in a very less pressure, 20 to 22 psi, 20 to 22 psi, we are going to measure the helium pycnometry, okay, with the helium gas. So whatever we are going to get the porosity, sometimes this is also called the excess porosity, or it is the overestimated result than that whatever we are able to get from the methane or the carbon dioxide porosity. Okay, so there lies the error chances, but that is the standard method, and you have to take this error into your calculation, and you have to then consider this, that okay, 10% or plus minus 10% or 5% variation. The lower the porosity, the variation of this helium and methane carbon dioxide will be less. The higher the porosity value of a coal, there will be higher variation from this methane to carbon dioxide porosity to helium porosity. Okay. Now, if you have understood this, next come the concept of the mobile fluid saturation and the immobile fluid saturation. Why this is important? Because this water saturation is going to affect the pore spaces. So obviously, whenever you are going to measure the porosity, there are the bases I have discussed earlier, whether it is a mobile fluid or whether it is an immobile fluid. Immobile fluid or the irreducible fluid are the connate water. They are also called the connate water, and they are inherent. They are inherent to the rock or to the coal. You cannot take out all the water. Okay, so this is again two concepts which you need to consider. Again, when you are going to measure the pycnometry, there are other cases when you are going to measure the core fracture system pore volume by displacing whatever the fluid it is having. Generally, it is done by taking the total saturation of that coal sample with that fluid. Suppose you are going to take the measurement of the fluid porosity, you are going to saturate the sample with water, and then you are going to take the experimental fluid of which you are going to measure the permeability or the porosity. Now you are going to apply pressure so that that particular fluid is going to displace the water which is already being inside into the coal sample. And you are going to measure the porosity by the amount of the displacement water volume, because that water is coming out from the pore. Okay, so if you can measure this, you have already considered that it is totally 100% saturation of the pore volume, and then suppose there is a 40% water volume is coming. So obviously that means 40% water is displaced by the fluid. So that means fluid is having the porosity of only 40% because it can take only 40%. That this way you can estimate the fluid porosity, okay, the fracture porosity. This is called the fracture porosity, okay, not the pore or the micropore, mesopore like that. It is the fracture porosity always. But then there comes the concept. If you read this, I have also highlighted some of the section. Again, the concept is restricted by the concept of by the introduction of the miscible fluid and the immiscible fluid. Okay, earlier you have seen the mobile fluid and the immobile fluid that cannot transfer. Okay, that is called the immobile. Now this miscible and immiscible means one fluid which is not going to dissolve properly into the other phase. Okay, that is called the immiscible, like oil and water, they are immiscible. Whereas water and suppose alcohol, they are miscible fluid. Okay, so now you can think that in case of miscible fluid, it is very easy again, that whatever displacement is taking place, you will be going to measure that. But in case of immiscible fluid, the total amount of the water will not be, total amount of fluid will not be displaced. Then comes the concept of the surface tension. Then comes the concept of the surface tension, because it is the difference between the surface tension, the force that is going to be exerted by the fluid, as well as the dragging force which is going to use for the fracture porosity. The difference of these two will give you that how much immiscible fluid porosity or pore volume or the saturation is going to be dependent on the, and that much value is going to be measured, is going to give you the information about the permeability. Okay, so this is some of the different concept, And then again, when you are going to see the pore volume compressibility of the fractures. That means again you have to see the porosity and as well as the permeability, and based on that, as the pressure is going to increase, the elastic effect will come, and the surface is trying to compress with another, or it will be expand with respect to one another. Okay, and as I mentioned earlier, that there will be again the shrinkage and swelling phenomena. Swelling means when the pore coal is going to saturate, it is going to absorb the water, it is going to swell, its geometric volume is going to increase. Again, when it is going to discharge water, it is going to dissolve gases, its volume is going to shrink because it is going to give out the gases or the water. So this shrinkage and swelling effect, it is going to dominate the pore volume compressibility, the fracture compressibility. And so as the open spaces, as the aperture is going to change, so obviously your permeability is also going to change. Okay. Now we are coming to the next discussion, which is the relative permeability. Relative permeability is not a fundamental parameter to measure. Okay, it is the normal permeability, which is the Darcy flow permeability, which we are going to measure by the laboratory. But we are going to estimate the relative permeability in terms of the FFT and the base permeability. Okay. So again, this porosity and the permeability problems will be present, and then whenever you are going to take the coal samples, you know that if that coal sample is having already some moisture, you have to preserve that moisture. Otherwise, what will happen? Suppose when you are going to collect the coal sample, it is already having some 10 to 20% of the moisture. Now, if you are going to consider the permeability at the dry state, so what will happen? Whatever moisture was there, it is going to be evaporated. Only the connate moisture will be present there. So when some of the moisture will be evaporated, what will happen? As the water is coming out, the coal volume will shrink. So the fracture aperture will increase. So in turns, it will going to show you some increased permeability value than the original situation. So that will be a wrong thing. Okay, so that's why you have to preserve the moisture. Okay, otherwise it may not be representable. It may not be representable of your actual sample. If you are going to do this with the total water saturation, it is the standard process. Standard process means you are going to saturate the coal sample totally with the water, and then this is the standard basis. That means a coal sample, sometime it is after preparation of the coal sample, it is not refrigerated, but it is going to be immersed. It is stored after immersing into the water, so that it is going, all the coal samples will be saturated, and then the normal basis will be the water sample, the water saturated sample, and then you can compare all the permeability values. Okay, but again you have to have the idea that your core sample should be representative of your coal seam. Otherwise there will be again some problem. Okay, now whenever you are going to measure the relative permeability, the coal core single phase flow test, okay, they are going to give the estimate of the absolute permeability. Okay, and then again you have seen earlier that the production stage, the water production is coming very quickly and then it is going to decline. So obviously whenever you are going to take the permeability analysis in the laboratory, you have to leave some earlier points, leave some earlier times of the earlier points of the data. Why? Because at that point of the time, it is gas production, water production is quite high, because water is continuously taking out, and that is not directly giving you the idea about the permeability value, coal permeability value, because the water is coming out depending on the pressure. So wait for some time so that the permeability values are coming to a constant when you have taken out all the waters from there, and then depending on the water saturation, the gases will come out, and then you will be getting a gas production and a gas permeability or the constant water permeability. Okay, then the gas permeability will differ, but the water permeability values will be more or less strong. Okay, if you see the graph, this is the graph how we are going to calculate the permeability. You can see with time, with days, we are going to see the absolute permeability of a brine. They have taken the experimental value on the brine solution, and then they are going to plot it over time. So you can see that in the initial stages, within 3 or 4 days, it is going to be reduced by, I think, 40 to 60. So total, if we are going to consider this at 100%, total 80% or 70% reduction is going to take place within 3-4 days. Okay, and then it is going to stabilize with a having in very low values. That means at this stage, total water is going to be taken out, and so you are going to get the what is immobile water saturation, and the effective permeability will be able to get. Okay, so like this way you are going to measure the relative permeability. Okay, now this is the case of how we are going to measure the relative permeability, the variation of the vertical permeability. You can also see here they have also going to discuss about the differences between the vertical and the horizontal, and they have mentioned that from the history value, the vertical permeability may be over 100 times less than the geometric average horizontal permeability. Why? Because in the bedding plane there is no fluid flow. Okay, whereas in the horizontal direction there are facelets and the buttlets. Okay. So now let us discuss about what are the exact different concept of the permeability measurement. Now this was whatever earlier we have discussed. That measurement is based on the different terms of the permeability, whether it is absolute, whether it is effective, or whether it is relative. Now what we are going to see is the different method or the different types of the permeability measurements. There are two different techniques. First is the steady state, that means with constant time. And second is the unsteady state or the dynamic movement. Dynamic means varying with time. Okay, so in this text, they have given you the idea and they have shown you some of the guidelines or the parameters by which you are going to measure. In brief, I am going to discuss. In the steady state procedure, you can see gas and water are injected at known rates. Okay, gas and water are injected at known rates until the produced gas and the water rates are the same as the injected rates. So at one end, you are going to inject the gas and water, and you are going to take the same gas rate and the water rate, and you are going to record that. And the other end of the sample, you are going to collect how much gas and water, how the gas rates are coming out. Okay, because if you measure these two end, so there will be difference of the gas rate at point 1 and point 2. Point 1 is for the intake side, point 2 is the outlet side. Okay, so inlet and outlet side, these two pressure differences will be for the water and for the gas, depending on their permeability. And with this record, you are going to put in the Darcy law and you are going to calculate the permeability. Okay, obviously the saturation, you will be going to measure this from the saturation, and because you are going to take the pressure and you are going to measure the volume also, flow, and so with time you will be able to calculate the saturation, and then the permeability will be given based on this saturation. Okay, now for this unsteady state, what we are going to do? In the unsteady state, the gas is continuously injected into a core that is initially saturated entirely with water. So there is a difference. In unsteady state, we are going to make the sample water saturated, and then we are only injecting the gases. Okay, the injection rate of the gas, the pressure drop from inlet and outlet, and the production rates of water and gas are monitored as a function of time. So now you are going to measure at the outlet the gas production, the water production, and the pressure drop. So then with this pressure drop and the volume, you will be putting into this Darcy flow, and then obviously you will be able to calculate the relative. Here all the permeability you are going to calculate, it is the relative permeability, because there are two effective permeability you are going to get directly, and then relative permeability will be effective by the absolute permeability. Okay, so this unsteady or the steady technique both of them are having some plus, some minus. So they are sometimes some of them are advantages, sometimes some of them are disadvantages. Steady state, it is very difficult. Steady state analysis is very much difficult. It is very much time consuming and much more complex. Okay, whereas the steady state is having the main weakness of the steady state is that relative permeability is the need. You have to calculate the relative permeability for accurate determination of the fluid situation. Okay, and it takes huge time. It is very much complex, but it takes huge time. Okay, you have to monitor total. Suppose with 1 week you have to monitor continuously. At each second you have to continuous, and it is a little bit complex because you have to monitor to inlet pressure, to outlet pressure. You have to monitor the volume rate. You have to monitor the pressure rate. So 8 parameter you need to check. Okay, but then the unsteady state, you are going to have as you are going to inject the gas data. So your water data, you are only having the water saturation, but the water, how much it is going to displace. You know that whenever coal is exposed to the some gas which is very much absorbable, or if it is helium also, at the very high, when the pressure is very high, so the moment you are going to open the gas and gas is coming into the contact of the coal, either if it is adsorbed gas like methane and carbon dioxide, the first it is going to adsorb, so very quickly pressure is going to reduce. And if it is helium is going to penetrate and it is going to spread all over very much quickly, and so stability will be coming. So this earlier time data will be very short. Earlier time data points will be very short for the unsteady state. Okay, because here the gas you are going to inject, even if you are going to inject at the constant volume, but the difference is because it is going to, the diffusion rate or the absorption rate or the flow rate are not going to be constant, so it is going to change based on the water what is saturated, which is going to saturate the coal water, and the gas, the gas depending on the gas situation. So here comes the relative permeability. Okay, so these are the two defined technique. Okay, however the unsteady state is very quick. You can quickly get this unsteady state, and it is easy also, but then you will not get the earlier time data. The more data you will be able to get the more information. Okay, now these core measurement case studies, okay, the core measurement case study, they have given some field records, they have given the field data for you to understand. So I am just skipping this core measurement case studies. Okay, I am just going to skip this, but for you have to understand a little bit of the differences of the steady state and the unsteady state. So please go through this text. Okay, you can skip the case studies. Okay, you can skip the case studies. They have discussed the 4 case studies, but I'll show you. You can see the data also. This table, they have given the data from the historical point and the earlier reservoirs. I'll only discuss you this graph. This graph is very, very important. This graph is from the case study 4. Okay, I just need to show you that what is happening here. You can see that in the x-axis they have given water saturation, and the y-axis they have given the relative permeability to gas to water. Okay, to gas or water. So in the relative permeability is plotted in the y-axis for both gas and water, and you can see the 2 graphs are given. The 2 fine line, this fine line is for the water. Okay, this is for the water saturation, and this fine line is for the gas conditioning, giving you the value of the relative permeability. But the x-axis is fixed. X-axis is only for the water saturation. Okay, so now let us try to see. You can see the x-axis value is from 0 to 1. Okay, so that means the water saturation is from 0 to 20% to 40% and so on. It is the total saturation. You can see that both of the graphs are coming as 1 minus. You can see that whenever the water saturation is higher, it is the 1, gas saturation is very much less, it is 0. Okay. And so at the final water saturation, you can see when it is totally filled with the water, the relative permeability of the gas, you can see it is going to be 0. Similarly, whenever total gas saturation is 1, you can see this is the water, this is the permeability. It is totally giving the saturation. Whenever the gas saturation is 1, so water will be 0. There is no such water is present. But then, interestingly, you please point out this area. You can see that this line, although for the gas saturation is directly can see 1. Okay, that means it can reach 1. But again, the water saturation is not going to directly going to 0. You can see it is reached the 0 at some earlier, because this is going to take, that means it is seen that 0.1. Okay, the water saturation is 1.1. That means is in this part 0.0 to 0.1. It is the immobile fluid or the connate water. Okay, this graph is giving you the idea. This part is going to give you the idea about the connate water. So then it is going to increase, but then this 0 is not directly matching with this. Okay, so that means even if the gas saturation is totally, that means some amount of the water is already present, which is the immobile fluid. And so you have to reduce this, and then you are going to measure as the effective permeability. That's why the effective permeability, relative permeability is again coming as the effective permeability. And so the effective permeability, remember, if you the definition you can remember, the effective permeability is always measured at the irreducible water saturation. So you are going to reduce, you are going to take this out. Okay. And then the relative permeability, as you can see, as the water saturation is higher, so first the water permeability is very high. As the water is taking out, water you are going to take out, so water saturation is going to reduce. So what is happening? The water relative permeability is going to reduce. Okay, water will follow this graph. But then as some pressure is going to reduce, so now the gases are going to dissolve. So similarly, as the gases are going to dissolve, gases are going to transform from the adsorbed state to the free state. They are going to come, they are going to diffuse, and they are going to reach natural fixtures in the free state, from the adsorbed state to the free state. So their saturation is going to increase now, water saturation is going to reduce, and gas saturation is going to increase now. Okay, so gas saturation is going to increase now. Okay, in this way. So when the water saturation is again going to reduce, gas saturation is again going to increase, and see that at the production, after some time, whenever the water rate is going to be very much stabilized, you will see very high amount of the gas production is coming out. If you remember the 3 phases, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, you will be, if you compare this result with your gas production rate, okay, from the coal bed methane reservoir, you will see that whenever the gas production is going to reduce, gas production is going to increase, obviously the water production is going to reduce. Otherwise, you will not be able to get the gases. Okay, so that's why you need to understand this thing. Okay, so these two are the two things that these are contradictory. That's why it is giving the rectangular hyperbola. Okay, so please try to understand this graph. Okay, this is actually showing you the idea about how the relative permeability is going to vary, and you can see that they have got here 4 points. They have mentioned at 4 points. Why the 4 points are coming? Whenever we are going to take the water permeability, you can see that 95% confidence interval. Okay, so both range. If you see the normal T distribution or the normal distribution, if you do how the hypothesis is going to be, hypothesis in the statistics are going to be calculated, you know that 95% confidence interval, both plus and minus in the two distribution, you will be getting this two dotted line for water. Similarly, for gas with 95% confidence interval, you will be again getting this 2 plus minus 95% or 90 minus. So you will be getting a zone. And when this two dotted line of gas are going to intercept with the two dotted line of the water, you are going to get the 4 points. Okay. So these 4 points will give you the 4 different conditions of water and gas saturations, and thereby you will be able to calculate the relative permeability. Okay, whereas these fine lines will give you the base cases. Okay. Is it okay? Everybody can understand. You may not be able to understand in much more detailed way, but you will be able to, if you have understood the relative permeability, if you understood the concept of the water saturation and the gas saturation and the irreducible water, so you will be with the statistical some variation, the normal distribution, T-square distribution, amalgamating all those things, you will be able to understand this graph. Okay, so please read. If you want to know more, I'll suggest you that if you please read the case study 4 only. You please read the case study 4 of relative permeability. It will help you. It will help you to understand the graph more effectively. Okay. Now these are the total flow properties related to the reservoir. Now the last properties which is going to affect the flow is the fluid property. What are the fluid properties? So obviously you know that depending on the fluid, whether it is gas, whether it is water or other chemical fluid, or whether it is some drilling mud. Okay, so whatever fluid is present, one phase, two phase, or with different viscosities, collectively they are going to dominate the flow. So what other factors will come? The properties of the fluid, that means their viscosity. Obviously viscosity, you know, the retarding force. Okay, so whenever there is a Darcy flow, the changes in the Darcy flow are the depending on the composition of the gas and the formation fluid. Okay, the fluid property, the formation volume factor. What is the formation volume factor? The composition of the gas and the fluid into this. Okay, the density, fluid density, if you are having two type of fluid, okay, the densities of the fluid, based on the densities, their water, their pressure will be changed. Okay, the effective stress and the pore pressure is going to change, and obviously the viscosity of the gas. When viscosity of the fluid is also there whenever I am talking about the fluid properties, but again the viscosity of the gas. Why viscosity of the gas will come? Because of the relative permeability. Okay, because of the relative permeability, as you can see the earlier graph, that whenever the water is going to reduce, the gas particles is going to increase. See, you just imagine in a pipeline, you imagine a flow in a pipeline, it is having inlet and outlet, and imagine that the two mixing, gas and water, is going to mix. Okay, suppose the saturation is 50%. Okay, so gas is 50%, water is 50%. So if you consider a fluid flow into that pipeline, what will happen? There will be a boundary of the water and gas in the middle. Suppose in a total full circle, the cross section, imagine that in the half circle, vertically division line is there. Left side of the half circle is filled with water, and the right side of the half circle is filled with gas. Okay, because there is 50% saturation I have imagined. Okay, so now apart from the viscosity or apart from the frictional forces arising at the boundary, depending on the fluid mechanics principle, which is going to give the, depending on the viscosity of the individual individual fluid, there will be again some relative permeability at the middle point, where this gas and the water layers are going to mix, and in that boundary the relative permeability will be important depending on each of the viscosity of these fluids, each of the pressure at which they are going to move, each of the properties of their Reynolds number. Okay, so these things, their density, because density will be the main pulling force. Okay, so these inertia forces and these changes of each of the fluid is coming to the cases, and that's why it is not only the permeability, because there is a mixture, there will be always relative permeability and the effective permeability. Okay, that is the main concept of the fluid flow. So if you discuss this, how you are going to get the fluid properties? Obviously, whenever you are going to take the saturated core from the CBM reservoir, so you can take the laboratory analysis and you can measure how much is the saturation of the fluid, how much the fluid is coming out, and what is the composition of that fluids. Okay, if you see the graphs, you can see that with the difference in the saturation, if you see the difference in the saturation, how the parameters, how the production or how the permeability of the gas and the water are going to change. Okay, So this case 1, 2, 3, 4, the same cases are going to be taken in that earlier graph. Okay, so you can see they have also discussed the same four concepts. So please go through this, and obviously you can understand some of the graph directly, because if the saturation is much higher, obviously the water production rate will be much higher, but the gas production rate will be much lower. Okay, and next, these are the cases where you are going to get the gas production and the water production based on the relative permeability. So you can see that in the left graph, for the gas production rate, the base is the average one. Okay, the third one is giving you the highest, whereas the fourth one is giving you the lowest. What is now, if I am the third one is giving you the highest production, and the fourth one is giving the lowest peak. And then the right side, the water production rate, okay, this is to vary in a very huge way. You can see that all the graphs are following the same path. So with a water saturation, the water production rate is not going to change that much, but it is the difference in the gas production rate. That's why the relative permeability you need to know. Okay, so if you see here the third and the fourth, what are these 2 points are coming in that earlier case? You can see now that third is the upper cross point, fourth is the lower cross point. What this upper and lower cross point is going to do? The upper cross point is going to take, suppose we are going to take the third. What this third is going to take? It is crossing the saturation. These two are the saturation graph. It is crossing the saturation graph at the higher relative permeability. Okay, it is crossing the graph at higher relative permeability, whereas the fourth point, it is crossing the graph at lower relative permeability. So now you can understand why this relative permeability is so influential for the gas production. With the higher relative permeability, you are going to get the higher gas production for the gas only. Okay, but with the lower permeability, lower saturation, the gas production is also, peak gas production is also going to be reduced. You can see for case number 3, you are going to reach approximately 1100, okay, MSCF, 1000 standard cubic feet per day, 1100, and then with 4, the peak is coming at approximately 800. So you are going to reduce maybe one third increase is there. Okay, one third or more than that, 30 to 40% increment. You are going to follow the higher cutoff into the relative permeability. So that's why these fluid properties are also important. But everything, your main agenda is to get higher production. So with this discussion, this chapter is also coming to an end. In the next discussion, I'll be giving some notes, and I'll be going in the other topics which I have not discussed in this discussion, in this note, or they are having some other discussions which I have skipped, and I'll be discussing some experimental part also. Okay, so any questions for anybody? If you are going to ask any question, please you can ask me.
Sir, syllabus test syllabus, sir.
Test syllabus I'll be intimating you. Obviously, it will be 4th chapter, and it will be some part from the discussion, whatever I am going to include now after this class. Okay, I'll be mentioning that. And the class test, depending on when you are going to come back, I have to take that into consideration. So if it is overlapping with your movement, some of you, as you know, that some of you will be traveling. So earlier I have told that it will be on the 22nd or 23rd of February. But let me see, you will also inform me your schedule, and accordingly, I can take it on 22nd or 23rd, or maybe in the first week, just after you have reached the campus, then only I can also take. Okay, and the last test will be the Viva. It will be having total syllabus. Okay, at the end of the class syllabus, whatever I'm going to be take the Viva, it will be on the total syllabus after the 12 March, after 12 or 15 March. Okay. And just for asking, some of you appeared for the GATE exam. How was the exam? How was the question? I don't have any idea, so that's why I'm asking you. Let me stop the recording first.